Craig's idealized waifu, a sickly, powerless girl without legs that lived in a hospital. What the f***?
Well, different strokes for different folks.
Hello, friends! Trace amounts of science. We're wrapping up the Craig saga today. A little bit of an RPG horror story. It seemed to go much better than I expected, and I take that to mean that there's somewhat of a gap in the market that ReddX Industries is more than willing to fill. If you've missed the first part, or perhaps just need a refresher, please do go back and watch it. The bigger those numbers get, the sooner we do RPG horror stories again. Anyways, that's about all I got as far as prologue goes, so let's go ahead and jump into part number 3 of the Craig saga. Don't ruin my seed! In exercise and lack of self-awareness, part number 3. This is, of course, the third story in the An Exercise and the Lack of Self-Awareness series. It takes place in parallel with the Anima campaign described in part 1 and after the Exalted campaign in part 2. I suggest reading them before diving into this rather lengthy story. That's fine. I read it at some point. It's in my brain somewhere. The only part I truly remember about the Craig saga is coming out and calling the OP sus a few times, and some of the comments being like, yeah, nobody ever pointed that out before. I'm like, good. That's the ReddX experience. If I think they're full of shit, I'll let you know. But some people think I'm full of shit, so what does it really mean anyways?
Well, he's fairly intelligent. He's full of shit!
Anyway, part 1, part 2, great, we did it. Go watch it if you want. After the anticlimactic ending of Craig's Exalted campaign, he flung back and forth about which tabletop RPG system to run next. A lot of systems were up for discussion, and Craig's whims were difficult to follow. He knew what setting he wanted because it was one of his own making. The problem was finding a system that was just right. You should try Blood and Thunder for a pirate theme. Made by a good friend of the channel, Ramtide. You can get it right now for name your own price over on ramtide.itch.io. Try it out. There's also Weirdos and Waifus for like a beardy one-shot. There's You Wake Up Naked in a Field with a Rock, which is exactly what it sounds like. It was mentioned in the Hippie Saga briefly. Truly, that is like a blank canvas. It can be whatever you want. The truth is, Craig doesn't actually want to pick a system. He likes to feel like he's in charge for a little bit. I think that's what this really boils down to, doesn't it? He's got a weird feeling of secret power, and he doesn't want to let it go. Anyway, OP says, at one point, Craig even tried to jailbreak and overhaul the Anima Beyond Fantasy system to meet his ends. I strongly recommended otherwise, as overhauling a system usually ends in a complete mess. In the end, we settled for Pathfinder, as we all were interested in trying it, and found it dynamic enough to meet Craig's criteria. Yeah, Craig's vague criteria. Nobody ever bothered to ask what it was, if we could help him look. Are we here to game, or are we going shopping? Let's fucking get it together. Anyway, roll call. The exact same people joined this campaign as the previous. Craig took the position of glorious GM, while Jake, and I joined as players. A bit further into the story, Mike once again joined. As for the characters... Oh wait, I think it's easier to describe the setting before getting to the characters, and trust me, it'll all make sense. It's your show, man, go ahead. The premise of the setting was great, not gonna lie. It was an underground setting, where the surface had been blasted into a hellish wasteland by some demonic gods. The survivors evacuated to a gigantic underground metropolis called Hymia Eerie. Hamia? I'm not even going to pretend to know how to pronounce that right. Craig doesn't even know how to properly pronounce it right, I'm sure. In the deep dark, people started mining into the vast caverns in search of resources. They found certain crystals of condensed light, which acted as a power source, creating a steampunkish, low fantasy setting. Actually, sort of piques my curiosity. I did say I like low fantasy. Can't go back on that now. It's the truth. A certain ethnicity of humans, whom called themselves the Lydian, had built Hamia Eerie, and they quickly constructed an autocratic and fascistic hierarchy, placing themselves at the very top, and the lesser people at the rock bottom. Ooh, the lessers, yes, the paws, as we called them. Amongst these people at the bottom were the cursed rock elves, or gray elves, that acted as slaves in menial labor. Craig told us that our group would be explorers, diplomats, and adventurers from Hymia Eerie, and when Craig pitched the idea, we all thought, oh yeah, sounds great. Perhaps he's learned from his mistakes and has become a better game master. Sadly, our hopes and dreams would quickly be crushed beneath Craig's boot heel. It's kind of like fool me once, shame on you, and fool me twice, shame on me. Craig fooled you, 3 times, so shame on you twice, I guess. Is that how the math works out?
Come on, do math.
Anyway, I rolled a lady in Magus named Leon. He was a very young and naive half-Ledian that attended to what can only be described as steampunk magic school. Leon's dad was a renowned alchemist and explorer that had gone missing for the better part of his life. The mother was unknown but implied to be a human of lesser pedigree. What a wizard, dude. Couldn't even pull a Stacy. All he gets are these Beckys. I told Craig that I wanted Leon's origin obfuscated. For example, I had left hints that Leon might be a simulacrum, a crafted human made by his father, plot fodder for the GM, I guess. Anyway, Leon was a scholar and kind-hearted person as a result of me wanting to wash away the moist suit of ZL from the Exalted campaign. Honestly, props there. I really hated your stupid edgelord character. Can I just be frank with you? He was bullied at school for not being a true-born Ladian, but he tried his best to fit in. I mean, he's a fucking robot, isn't he? He could punch through a wall if he wants. Or is like a crafted human as weak as like a regular human? Why would you craft it all shitty like that? You could make it out of metal and steel with power that's real. Whatever. Halfway interesting character, much better than the previous campaign, so I thank you. The first session came, and Leon was attending a school assembly due to state leaders coming to visit. Craig described these extravagantly clad people walking down rows and rows of saluting students. It quickly became clear that the state leaders were evil as fuck. They all had menacing auras, especially a scary-looking bodyguard, as the GM showed Raiden from MG Revengeance. I need to play that. The symbol was, I kid you not, a photoshopped combination of the little mustache man Imperial Eagle holding the Star Wars Empire symbol instead of the tiny mustache man symbol. Okay, I thought. Perhaps we are going to overthrow these obvious baddies. None of the other player characters were in sight, so I just went along. The state arranged a huge fighting tournament for their amusement and to instill discipline in the student body. Leon, being a capable fencer, joined and beat the snot out of one of his bullies. The first day of the visit came to an end, and Leon retreated back to his dorm room. Yep, can't fight against evil today. Gotta level up a little bit first. When prepared for bed, Leon felt a huge rumble from underneath. He went out of his dorm room and ran into one of the fellow students. Together, they started walking toward the assembly hall/safety bunker. Their escape was cut short when the ground gave way beneath them, causing them to tumble several floors down. Oh, shit! When they came to, they found themselves in one of the older parts of the academy, where students were not allowed. This is where they experiment with necromantic spells, isn't it? Oh! We gotta kill some zombies, but you don't have to feel bad about it because they're already dead. Leon and the other student wandered around in hope of finding an exit when they heard footsteps. In came a group of stone elves. As a reminder, they were the oppressed slave race of the Ledian, headed by none other than Jacob's character. Now, I must admit that Jacob really outdid himself when it came to his character. His name was Basal, and he was an utterly terrifying dude belonging to a mysterious faction called Deep Walkers, or something like that. Yeah, super mysterious. How deep can you walk, bro? Not as deep as the Deep Walkers, bro. This faction was an independent group of explorers, navigators, and guides that adhered to a strict code of conduct and took upon themselves the sacred task of helping explorers enter the deep horrors below Haimea Eerie. Basically, Basal was a witch, and boy, did he play one well. He always wore a haunting, obsolete gas mask and a grand coat. His familiar was a nasty shadow demon that only created silhouettes against whatever backdrop it passed by. I mentioned Basal was scary, and this was due to Jacob's portrayal of him. He had this utter confidence and stoicism, combined with the streaks of face-eating madness. Whatever Craig would throw at us in the way of horror, compelled in comparison to Jacob's Basal. Glorious. Yeah, a little Plague Doctor vibes, I'm kinda into that. Jacob is just a hell of a player, dude. I think every character that he's come up with through these stories I find interesting. Anyway, back to Leon. Understandably, the detachment of Grey Elves were not very pleased to see a pale-faced young Ledian crossing their path. The only reason he wasn't killed was that Basal told the group that he had not agreed to any deaths. Instead, Leon and his classmate became captured by the Grey Elves. In short order, the group came into a lab where they found a prisoner that they freed. Enter Jake's character, Embla. She was a particularly large Grey Elf that had been subjected to experimental treatment by her captors. My god, the Grey Elves are experimenting on one of their own. Much like the humans known as scientists.
Get your dork down to the test chamber, or else I will shove the sample up your ass.
We'll make way for Big Pharma, everybody. Over Embla's entire body, there were silvery markings that she sort of hijacked to create supernatural feats. Yeah, why not? I guess if the other guy gets a shadow demon. This is not as low fantasy as I was made to believe. Mechanically, Embla was a monk. All right, then. The group's destination was freeing Craig's MacGuffin for the campaign. You guessed it, she was a woman, described in great detail. Her name was Chechel, and she... what kind of name is that? And she possessed an extremely rare affinity for the light crystals used to power all magic and science. Hell yeah, dude, you can use it as a flashlight battery. You can use it to shoot magic missile.
Magic missile! Magic missile! Magic missile! I'm out of mana. I need a pop.
Just don't forget to put the crystals in. Easy. So Leon was quite pleased to see another Ledian, but Chechel quickly made it clear that she cared little for imperialist scum. Yay! After rescuing Chechel, the group started to escape the academy via the underways. One crashed escape ship later, and the group were on their merry way toward rejoining with the tunnel-lurking rebels. Mike joined later on as a Grey Elf barbarian named Grey. He had a hair trigger and an Oedipus complex. Not much else to say, really. I mean, yeah, I guess not. Oedipus complex speaks volumes all on its own, trust me. I don't know how much more I want to know about Mike. Anyway, OP continues and says, as you probably realize, my character was the odd man out. The group somehow took favor upon his fellow student, but his own treatment was abysmal. I will relate to you some of the more memorable sections of the campaign in somewhat chronological order. When exploring the deep depths of the caverns below, OP's character totally stressed out and punched Jacob's character into unconsciousness. Is there a mechanic for that? What, are we fucking playing Darkest Dungeon? I don't know, dude. My dude just had to punch your dude. You're an asshole. I don't want to play with you anymore. He left him lying in the darkness and went back to camp. The others said he would be fine, as his familiar would surely take care of him. No, that did not happen. Instead, Craig thought this otherwise innocuous character-building moment should spiral out of control and make everyone uncomfortable. You see, one part of the code that Basal followed was that it was absolutely forbidden to leave anyone behind in the tunnels. Breaking that code, even if you had no idea about it, would result in what they call exaction, which is essentially an impromptu court of law. Jacob had no idea about this, and the next session was dedicated to forcing PvP between OP and Jacob. I mean, I would want to PvP him anyways. Imagine if somebody did that to you in real life, left you for dead. Like, I don't care how good your character is. There must be reprisals. It was not an honorable duel or something like that either, but a drawn-out, torturous experience where Basal would cast all manner of nasty spells on Leon until he finally gave up. Jake's character could do nothing to interfere with the horrifying ordeal and said next to nothing for the entire session. Yeah, you guys want to come to my house and just describe torturing each other for 3 hours? No, I don't think I like that. Jacob kept trying to have Basal let Leon get off easy, as he was not much more than a child, but Craig would have none of that. At times, Craig even said, "Your character does this because otherwise his peers would kill him for breaking the rules." Great, everyone thought, and kept up the travesty that no one asked for. Finally, it ended with Leon humiliating himself before Basal, basically groveling in his own blood and dirt to ask for forgiveness. Well, yeah, I forgive you instantly. You should have said that before we did all this shit. It's really awkward. I'm all for reprisals, as I said, but making the whole session about it, Jesus. What a slog. I want to go home. Anyway, later on, the party entered some bizarre pocket dimension where a mad sorcerer king reigned. We all thought it a bit strange, as it looked more akin to the standard fare medieval Europe Dungeons & Dragons playground, rather than the steampunkish techno-magic exploration simulator. Oh well, we thought, and went on with it. You're being railroaded right now. I hope you realize that. It's much easier to stop being railroaded if you punch the brakes nice and early. Then we only gotta rewind the past 10 minutes instead of the past 10 hours, you know? GM might be steering the ship, but I'm gonna dictate which way the wind blows, you know? I got some say here. Anyway, OP says, I can't remember why we even entered that horrid place. Maybe it was just another obstacle in the journey toward the other rebels. Anyway, the Pocket World was a really dark and gothic landmass of villages and a larger central city. Most of the populace were nothing more than mine slaves, while the undead walked the land without opposition. We quickly ran into one of the most obnoxious characters that Craig ever designed, Figaro, the hero. Figaro. I like him already. He was a second-rate Batman, combined with a happy-go-lucky attitude that made everyone grind their teeth in cringe. Honestly, I'm just going to consider myself lucky that he's not playing another woman that tries to seduce OP this time around. There's something weird going on here. I don't know if either of you guys realize it, but I'm picking up the pieces. Figaro's closer to how Craig sees himself in real life, and he just wants to show that part of himself to you, OP. And now that he's opened up his heart, won't you open yours back? Look at us, getting all twisted up in this crazy thing called love. Now kiss me on my hot mouth.
Come over here and kiss me on my hot mouth. I'm feeling romantical.
You don't know what cringe is, OP. Dealing with a second-rate Batman, that's baby stuff. Watch me ship you guys together. All right, continuing on. Worst part of it all was that Figaro was more or less forced upon us as the guy looks trustworthy and holds the string to all the plot hooks. Oh, fuck me, we all thought, and went with the idiot vigilante. Figaro was one of the few remaining free folk, and had taken it upon himself to rid the Pocket World of the tyrannical Sorcerer King, one undead lieutenant at a time. Yeah, super cool. How long is this part of the campaign gonna last? I hope all the lieutenants live next door to each other and we can just throw a Molotov cocktail, you know? Problem solved. Let's get the hell out of here to the actually interesting part. OP says, as you can imagine, we were roped into this ploy at instant speed. I mean, roped into makes it sound like you didn't want to go along with it, which I probably wouldn't. Like I said, it sounds paper thin. Oh, we killed a lieutenant. Now we got to go kill another one and then another one. Maybe we get to fight the bad guy now. No, he's got more lieutenants. We could do this forever. Tell me how many, and I'll go burn their house down. We were sent out to ambush a supply caravan carrying slaves from the central city to some hellish mine or something. Being the clever players that we were, we sneaked up towards the caravan while it was still loaded with the poor souls, hoping to get the jump on the lieutenant. Embla, Jake's character, went out and crept up toward a wooden wall to peek out from. When peeking at the caravan, she was met with a guard looking her right back in the face. Then Craig lifted up his 5 fingers and started counting down. 5, 4, 3, Jake just said. Easy, man, just let me get a read on what happens around. Are there any other guards or cover? 2, 1, Too bad. Yeah, the game is moving in real time because I want this to happen. Then Craig rolled attack for the guard and said that Embla was flat-footed, which is a combat state in Pathfinder that you get from having lower initiative and other things giving you penalties to your defenses. Of course, the guard critted and Embla went down like a wet napkin. The rest rushed in and spent nearly everything they had on the battle, barely scraping by, which we all thought was pretty bullshit. Yeah, I don't know. Most of my tabletop experiences are with Ramtide, and he runs it really hard, so what I like. It's also what I like in my video games. Kick my ass a little bit. Make me wary of some things. But yeah, the countdown thing didn't even give him a chance to, like, slip into the shadows, roll for whatever you have, sneak. That part's BS, but I do like the combat. Anyway, he says, yeah, I should mention that Craig ran his combat encounters really brutal. Most of them required every single resource at our disposal, leaving our characters barely breathing by the end of it. It didn't help that he was extremely restrictive with loot and equipment. We voiced this concern to Craig numerous times, and he showed his vast gratitude by bestowing Embla with some chainmail armor. Problem was, Embla was a monk and gained nothing from wearing the armor. He's trolling, what the fuck? Cool, thanks so much. Maybe next time I won't get crit in the face. I should also mention that the problem of character agency made a grand return in this campaign. Yeah, I could already tell. If you've read about his Exalted campaign, you know that Craig liked to change our characters around to create plot. Now, Leon was a vanilla magus, and I wanted him that way. Craig thought it wasn't cool enough, so he made him a Black Blade Magus, which is a variation on the base class with some modifications to wield the titular Black Blade. See, Craig's trying to make OP the central point of the story again, because they spend the most time together. Eventually, Figaro is going to ask out OP's character in game, and then Craig's going to be like, I have a question to ask you out of character. How's that going to go? Because that is where all this is headed. Anyway, it didn't help that the Black Blade was a sadistic death demon that wanted to drive Leon into bad things. This is what I get for trying to play a nice character. I still wonder why I accepted such a blatant disregard for my own character agency. Because you got no balls, no backbone, it's fine. Maybe they've grown in sense. I guess it's not until you get older that you realize that you don't have that many years left on the planet anyway, and you don't want to spend it doing bullshit that isn't fun. Like, at my current age, I'd speak up instantly. At 22, I don't know. I'd be like, yeah, let's see where it goes. Yeah, it's lame now, but maybe it gets better later. 3 campaigns later, we're still telling ourselves the same thing. Yeah, next time it'll be better. Oh, it's gonna be good next time. Craig said it would. He hasn't lied before, has he? Oh, he has? Huh. Well then, guess I'm dumb. But back to Figaro, the hero. I had become quite fed up with Craig's treatment of my character. The constant bullying, lack of agency, broken promises, and questionable ethics on encounter design had really added up. I asked to change my character, which was accepted. Leon was, on Craig's behest, killed off by a magic MacGuffin box that we picked up earlier. Enter my new character, Rayra Weaver. Rayra? Do I have that right? I'm gonna call her Reba. Reba was unlike Leon, a native of the deep dark below and lived in said pocket dimension. Her backstory was that she suddenly woke up, fully grown, in one of the old temples near one of the free folk villages. She faintly remembered living amongst the stars and falling toward the depths. In essence, she was a quasi-angelic being sent to the world for unknown reasons. Yeah, we don't know the reason in the plot. The real reason is OP wanted to roll a new character. Her class was the notoriously powerful Synthesis Summoner, which I suggest you read up on if you're interested in broken builds. I can't claim that I fully optimized her, but I certainly made her considerably more powerful than the wimpy Leon. I mean, it is a power fantasy. I guess that's one way you could go. Now I'm an angel that shoots ray guns from her hands. Like, I don't know. I think a flawed character's sort of more interesting, but if we're just going min-max, hey, you did it. Make sure you brag about it on Reddit.
What up, Reddit?
Oh, sorry, that's mean. I just gotta say it out loud, though, that I think you and I are pretty fundamentally different people, OP. Good way, bad way, I don't know, but different. Anyway, I blame the constant arms race between Craig and the players, so I had no moral trouble with creating Reba. Her synthesis form was, if you're interested, a sort of diva angel demon straight out of Hindu/Chinese folklore, complete with dozens of invisible arms and hovering a few inches above the air. My God, she can go to space? There's a lot of air on planet Earth. I guess she's an angel demon. Again, it's sort of cringe. I preferred Leon, if I'm honest. So Reba was rather quickly introduced to the remaining party, as she was very inclined to have the tyrant sorcerer king gone from the world. Without much hassle, the new party was formed, and they went to the Big Bad Evil Guy Citadel 1.0. The way up was brutal as fuck, as Craig usually liked it. Close to the top was a Colosseum-like arena where we were forced to fight some gigantic sandworm. Like from Beetlejuice or from Dune?
Whoa. Sandworms. You hate them, right? I hate them myself.
It really did a number on us and mortally wounded Figaro the hero. The crowd of undead didn't much care for us actually surviving the entertainment and started to flood the Colosseum grounds. This sense of urgency to escape was rather confusing, as Craig described Figaro heroically delivering his final words to his wife, who was with us. Oh, we didn't mention that. As none of us really cared for Figaro, we just said that we started to look for the way out. Then out of nowhere, Craig screamed, "Don't ruin my scene!" at us. Oh, it really is about you. See? Figaro is the stand-in. We were all dumbfounded by this explosion and just sat there quiet. Then Craig proceeded to finish his heart-wrenching dialogue while our characters obediently stood and watched. Yeah, while being flooded by the undead. Afterwards, Craig said, "Don't interrupt me when I'm talking again." And it sounded like a threat. See, what Craig really wants to do is play with himself. So just do that, Craig. You can write all the scenes you want, have your little monologue, soliloquy, whatever you like. You don't have to involve the rest of us. As a matter of fact, please don't involve the rest of us. After that sobering experience, we finally reached the Big Bad Evil Guy. He was sitting on his throne and gloated a bit. Something about power over death, you know, the usual stuff. In unison, we attacked him, rushing toward his throne. Then Craig said, "Roll a fortitude save." Some of us rolled really high, but we all failed regardless. We were essentially pinned down by some magical vortex. When we tried to ask for a reroll on the save, Craig proudly said, "There's no way you can escape. This is a level 9 spell, and you have to nat 20 to get out." Some of us tried, but rolling a 20 on demand is really not a trainable skill. I mean, arguable, but I guess for the most part, you are sort of right. Then Craig turned his face toward me and said something along the lines of, "You feel a power growing inside of you." Oh my God, Craig impregnated your character. Here we go, we're getting really weird again.
Oh no, not again.
And Reba managed to escape her bonds without any roll to speak of. Then the Big Bad Evil Guy, being as generic as humanly possible, staggered backwards and said, "Impossible!" Craig then described how Reba ran toward him with her sword raised. He looked childishly delighted as he put on some epic music and asked, "Now, how does Reba finish him?" I looked around the table. My fellow players had a mix of disgust and confusion on their faces. Understandable, as the climactic confrontation with the Big Bad Evil Guy had been reduced to a cutscene-esque power trip. It's really disappointing. Craig, on the other hand, looked like he just witnessed the most awesome thing ever made. I felt rather uncomfortable and couldn't really share his enthusiasm, so I just went with a lot of screaming and stabbing with pointing things. Now the Big Bad Evil Guy's dead! Yay! After that anti-climax, we proceeded on our pointless quest toward the rebel base. It actually felt like we were getting further away from it by this session instead of closer. Mike switched out the Barbarian Grey for a real edgelord lady and runaway inquisitor named Michael. Yeah, all the douchebags named Mike. Like I said, I think I said in the last episode. The new addition was constantly grumpy and really didn't add that much to the group dynamics. Yep, he's just along for the murder hobo, and every group has one. Now we get to Craig's grand design, a massive pyramid built by the obligatory proto-race. I have no idea how we came across it. It just sort of showed up, and of course we had to explore it. Just before entering this massive structure, which Craig called an epic dungeon, the game fell apart. Again, he got you again.
Done it again! You dirty bastard, you've done it again!
Craig just got sick of running Pathfinder and sulked for a few months about how inconvenient the system was. Eventually, he found himself back and announced that we would change the system, because why not? Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition was up next. And again, we're just rolling along with it. Why? Why? I don't understand. Naturally, we had to basically redo our characters from scratch, and we did our best to fluff our abilities to fit our themes. It didn't go that well. Basal, who used to be a strange and wonderful witch, became a shaman. Instead of being the nasty badass of curses and disease, he became a glorified healer with a severely crippled familiar. Reba, being a synthesis summoner, had no clear counterpart in 4th edition, so she became a druid. You know, shape-shifting and all that. Jake, whom was actually happy with the change of system, he still loathes Pathfinder to this day due to the crippled monk class, had Embla turn into a warden. Instead of smashing people with fists, she got a big old hammer to pummel her foes into dust. It worked out rather well. Lastly, Mike's Inquisitor became a blackguard variant of the Paladin class. My mouth is agape that everybody's going along with this. Nobody has shit to say to Craig. Like, hey, you turned into a little baby bitch boy for 3 months. I don't really want to, go along with your game for as long as it might last. Which isn't going to be very long. The way that this goes, he's got to change the system again. We got to re-roll our characters into something different. It's so stupid. I got one life. I ain't wasting it here. Anyway, as a bonus of changing systems, Craig sort of understood the need for gear and items when starting a very combat-oriented system. We got to choose a few magical items each, which was amazing. Sadly, those were the only starting items that we were going to get. Yeah, you'll be fine. Loot some corpses. You'll be fine. Anyway, back to the pyramid of highly original 4-bearer races. The whole thing was a massive techno-magical death trap filled with bullshit traps and failed attempts at ambient horror. I can't remember everything that happened in there over the course of several sessions, but I will mention a few. Jake's character, Embla, had a cart of stuff that she pulled along with the group. It was filled with resources, food, some equipment needed to survive the depths. When we entered the pyramid, we came across an elevator that took us into the entrance proper. Quickly, the entrance crumbled as the ancient systems had a power outage, sealing us inside. Jake said that his character retrieved a glow lamp from the cart to help with the darkness, and Craig just said, "No, you left the cart at the elevator." Jake, surprised, answered, "No, why would I do that? All the food and stuff is in there." Craig was quite bothered by being questioned by Jake and went, "No, you left it. It would look stupid to bring it along." He shut down any attempts from Jake or the other players. Of course, it would look way too silly to bring a dingy cart into this epic dungeon. No, yeah, that's great. Now all our player characters starve to death and the game is over. You won, Craig. Congratulations, I'm going home. In a few sessions, we were in a completely dark room. We were asked to roll stealth, and we all rolled quite well. He said we heard some sort of grinding noise from an unknown location. He asked us with an evil grin on our face what our characters did. I said that Reba took a weary step forward and lifted her head up in an attempt to hear from where the sound came, hoping to perhaps roll perception. Craig rolled a dice and said, "What's your AC?" Like 18, I answered. That is not enough, Craig said, his grin widening. Oh, good. Could be walking around with 25 ACs, probably still not enough. Then he went on to describe how Reba was grabbed by some slimy tentacle thing that violently pulled her away into the dark and away from the group. I asked for a save to get free from the unpleasant thingamajig, but was shut down with, "No, Reba doesn't know what's going on." I mean, she probably knows enough to know that you don't want to be wrapped in the giant tentacle, right?
어이데 낙심되게루요. 삭선갑 feel good.
The rest of the group navigated the darkness by Reba's confused screams, which took them like 5 minutes. At the end, they found her hanging upside down from the roof in a wide room lit with fires. Craig drew a battle grid, which is necessary when playing 4th edition, and placed Reba's token right in the middle of the utter shit. She was surrounded by, I kid you not, a bunch of demonic little ape things that tried to reach her. Around the ape things were a ring of fire and noxious fumes, and after that, a freaking ditch of dirt. Wow, they're really encamped in this campfire. They took that term quite literally. The rest of the group enter far, far away from her. Initiative starts, and Reba falls down and is immediately downed by the noxious fumes and the ape things. Another one of Craig's classic bullshit battles ensued, spending us all to the utter limit. Those of you whom have played 4th edition know that combat is treated as a steady progression in increasingly difficult encounters over the course of an adventuring day. Craig didn't much care for that, and was content with throwing one-way massive battles at us every adventuring day. Astute readers will most likely realize that Second Wind, a way of regaining HP, does not really favor such designs. What do you mean you can't kill 40 dudes on 1 health bar? What are you, a baby or something? Later came the epic final showdown with the demonic denizens of the pyramid. Craig had prepared it for a long time indeed. We entered through a gigantic door into a massive spherical room where gravity allowed you to walk on the walls. Pretty lit. There were nodes of pulsating flesh knots like hearts spread out everywhere. Significantly less lit. We quickly realized Craig intended to replicate a 3-dimensional battle grid, which was built by more skilled designers than him, and Craig spent like an hour in a fumbling attempt to draw this complicated 3D map on a 2D surface. We had a big wax mat we used for that sort of thing. We tried to help him simplify the map, but he accepted no help whatsoever. Yeah, I want to fuck this up all by myself. All right, go ahead, buddy. He drew arrows just about everywhere to represent height differences and interconnected paths. The whole thing was a true blasphemy. When it was finally done, he put our tokens at the entrance and spread out the other tokens to represent the nasty demons inside the Death Sphere. Death Sphere's good, but could we call it Thunderdome? I sort of like that a little better. At the middle of it all was a nasty piece of work, a scythe-wielding witch that had started the obligatory evil monologue. Right in the middle of it, I said, Reba has no reason to listen to this abomination. She cast a spell right at her face. Craig's eyes were lit with hatred, and he said, "Oh, you want to play like that? Sure." Didn't we have the conversation about not interrupting me when I'm monologuing? Like, Craig's a jerk and all that, sure, but OP doesn't do what he's supposed to do either. Everybody sucks, that's how I see it. Craig then prompted everyone to roll for initiative, and of course the enemy won initiative and utterly swarmed us. Now imagine this, dear reader. He had spent an hour preparing a massive battle map, but we only used about 5x5 of it. We were bogged down by a horde of enemies right at the mouth of the entrance, creating a reverse bottleneck for the entire party. When every demon lay dead, we went around to destroy the flesh knots, which I'm sure he intended to be done in a more dynamic way. You know, with mobility being a key factor and action management being important, he played himself and ruined the whole encounter. As a curious side note, we had an NPC with us, a sort of foster uncle of Reba that tagged along. In the middle of the swamped battle, Craig described how he got a sword pierced through his neck. through his body and out his lower back. Holy shit, we all thought. That guy just died. After the battle, Craig berated us for not healing the NPC because he was actually alive the whole time and was doing his death saves. Yeah, nice going. He made it sound like it was our fault. I mean, nobody wants to waste a healing spell on the corpse, just to check. After cleansing the pyramid, we reached the central control room. We were showered in plot by some ancient AI entity. The AI described our true selves, Reba being some sort of light goddess from a faraway dimension, Basal an avatar of the god of balance between life and death, Michael, fragments of a god of justice. Hey, this sounded mightily familiar to the plot of my parallel running anima campaign, which, yeah, it was. It was a shameless ripoff. As a final insult to Jake's character, whom Craig despised, he revealed that she was not a goddess, but just a temple guard to some fire gods. Playing favorites is truly a virtue. Some things never change, and you'd think eventually some people would get the message. I can't wait to get to the next part, though, where finally it's over for real, for real. Craig out here handing everybody a shit sandwich, and they just take a bite. They're like, I better not say anything. Come on, you deserve better, don't you? Anyway, the AI left after showing us some wish-making machine to create magical artifacts. Instead of giving us proper loot and stuff, to give us a decent chance at survival, he had to make this complicated system for fabricating said items. The system involves spending some sort of magical currency and writing a short story to Craig about what we wanted. Dear Santa Craig, I want to be invincible and invisible. I call it invincible. Okay, cool. Sure, you got that now. Oh, I'm so cool now. I can do whatever I want in my mind. Yeah, you could have done that without the piece of paper. Without wasting hours of your life. Whatever. It's fine. Super fun and cool. The wish-making machine was never used, as Craig put the campaign on permanent ice. Again, dude. And I'm sure everybody's shocked again.
I am shocked. Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
He claimed to have lost inspiration and lamented how his initial steampunk setting had devolved into generic European fantasy. Well, you did that all by yourself, I'm afraid. Craig went on to obsess over other game systems and made a few failed attempts at running other campaigns. I finished being a player in his campaigns and had no interest in joining. There we go. 3 times? That's what it takes to learn our lesson? It's not bad. I've seen worse. Good job, OP. Proud of you. Growing those balls and backbone. Coming along nicely. Like a couple of great big juicy plums. What I heard from the players was more of the same as described herein. There we go. Another anticlimax from Craig's Forge of Wonders. There's one part left, which takes place after my anima campaign had ended, and we joined up for a one-shot module. Oh my god! It's like Mr. Bones' Wild Ride. You think it's over, they pull you back in. It is about Craig's ultimate meltdown and how he left the group for good. Let me hear if you want to read about it. Yeah, sure, why not? TLDR, Game Master oversells his own setting and mismanages it into oblivion, making sure to create as bumpy a ride as possible. Yeah, he did that twice, and everybody just sat there for it. But I'm glad reality is finally starting to penetrate some skulls, You love to see that. Maybe it's not too late. Anyway, let's get into the last part and see how all this ends. We're running long today, but I think it's fine. Craig's Meltdown, an exercise in lack of self-awareness for finale. The story's a long time coming. Been busy with, life and stuff. Anyway, here comes the concluding part of the saga of Craig, an exercise in lack of self-awareness, part 4. If you've not read the earlier parts already, here are some links. The concluding part takes place after Craig left the Anima Beyond Fantasy campaign described in part 1, and well after the train wreck that was his own 2 campaigns as described in parts 2 and 3. At this stage in our lives, we were all well through our university education, with just a few years left to go. Yeah, so not well through it. Well halfway through it. Craig had at this time remarked a lack of time to enjoy the glorious role-playing hobby. His reasons were always vague and unclear, but I digress. He got himself a waifu pillow. He's putting in some quality time. You wouldn't get it. During a winter, our regular campaigns, without Craig, had taken a small break for exams and stuff. To let loose some steam and take the pressure off our studies, I quickly threw together a Hunter the Vigil, New World of Darkness by White Wolf game. The idea was to use a pre-made scenario, which I'd never done before, to minimize planning time. If you want to try the module, you can look for Blood Drive, a scenario in the Hunter the Vigil storytelling adventure system. In essence, it's about a group of hunters that have to escort a vampire from New York to Chicago. In essence, the scenario is a not always so cozy road trip. The scenario was a total blast and lauded by my stressed out friends. Okay, neato. The problem arose when I, in my utmost ignorance, decided to run another module with the same system. This time, including Craig. Yeah, see, that's the part where why?
Why? Why? Why? Why? Why?
Why? Why'd you do that? Why? When I pitched the idea of running Murder Will Out, another Hunter the Vigil game, Craig was positively brimming with excitement. Jake and Jacob, whom you might remember from the previous parts of the saga of Craig, reused their old characters, which are not really relevant to the story. Tom, a new guy that participated in Blood Drive, also reused his character. Craig, on the other hand, made one of the worst characters I've ever had the displeasure of seeing in action. And yet still, you let him play in your campaign. I was mistaken. I thought you had some big heavy plums. They're just wrinkly little grapes. They could grow. They're budding, which is nice. But we got a ways to go. Anyway, Craig's character was called Elijah Dante Ramsey, and he was a bit of an abrasive douche. Seeing how the time available to prepare a decent character was limited, just a week or so, Craig went into the wish fulfillment zone in the deep recesses of his addled mind. Elijah was a pretty boy private investigator. He had left the police force because he thought they were too strict and that they followed the rules too much. This character is delightfully cringe already. Elijah was decidedly a quasi-vigilante that worked the streets. He was also a master seducer, gunman, and general badass. Woven tightly into his backstory was Craig's idealized waifu, a sickly, powerless girl without legs that lived in a hospital. What the fuck?
Well, different strokes for different folks.
Yes, I'd like to medicate my wife. It's just easier this way. I show up during visiting hours or I don't. Wow. She was, of course, incredibly pretty and submissive, just the way Craig likes it. I cannot remember her name, but Craig's character referred to her as Dollface. Shudder. He's doing that thing. Does he walk around saying, "Meh," all the time? Yeah, we gotta go get him, Muggsy. Meh. Maybe I like the character a little bit. Turning your badge, Ramsey. You don't play by the rules. Well, they're not playing by the rules either, see? Meh. I think Craig found her when he worked a case. Back then, she had legs and was the typical golden-hearted toot with a heavy narcotics problem that Elijah helped her out of. Yeah, he could fix her. Nobody else could fix her, but he did. He had set up Dollface to be 100% dependent on Elijah for just about everything. He sent me a picture of a half-nude blonde anime girl taking a shower and said, "Yep, that's her. Well, she doesn't have legs anymore, but you can imagine that girl minus 2 legs." Yeah, thanks, Craig. Thanks a bunch for sharing. Is he a stump worshipper? Dude, Craig is into some shit, let me tell you that. So in essence, Craig just wanted to play a wish fulfillment discount James Bond badass that got all the girls and shot all the bad guys. Okay, no harm in that, really. The problem arises when you fail to separate your character from yourself, and that would be Craig's ultimate downfall. He gets rejected in real life, and then he gets rejected in the game. I can't handle it anymore. I thought OP invited me over so we could role play it out like we used to, you know? Anyway, the scenario at hand was about a possessed hospital that had burrowed its tendrils into the minds of a group of psychos, turning their murderous instincts up to 11. Following the flow of the scenario, the hunters would investigate these lunatics and find the common denominator, the hospital. They were then supposed to enter the hospital, purge the living bejesus out of it, and slide through a trash chute with the hospital exploding and Eldritch Magnus in the background. I'm not too sure about that last part, actually. Central pre-made NPC was Franklin Kim. He was a police detective that had come into contact with some of these strange supernatural events, courtesy of the psychos and their demon hospital patron. And he also acted as a primary contact for the hunters. Now, Franklin was a hot-blooded guy with severe anger issues, and he was also a bit of a condescending dick. He'd be sarcastic and demeaning to the hunters, calling out their lack of respect for legal rules and so forth. I don't know how many cops you've met, and especially police detectives, but yeah, they are kind of condescending dicks. I made it very clear that Franklin was obviously stressed out of his mind and that they shouldn't take it personally. The sensible hunters just nodded in agreement, while Craig clenched his fists in white-hot rage anytime Can't Do Wrong Pretty Boy Elijah was openly challenged. I mean, he does seem to be pretty open about his mental challenges. Elijah, of course, thought Franklin was a bit of a condescending bastard. I mean, Craig, not Elijah. Oh wait, no, they both hated that guy. I always forget that Craig and Elijah were both more or less interchangeable. I want to save my editor's sanity, and his name's Elijah, so I'm going to call him Craig for the rest of the post, okay? We don't want to talk ill of Elijah. Elijah does a lot of good work around here. He's done it for many years. It's me and him, essentially, running the whole fucking show, and Arif, too. Anywho, the scenario went along for the evening. The hunters poked about, investigated, and were attacked in a parking lot by a cannibal homeless woman with a magical machete. The usual stuff. Things were going nicely. What was magical about the machete? Vorpal blade, dude. Gotta watch out, Vorpal blade. One of these psychopathic killers was an old man that had received a potent gift from the demon in the hospital, a pen that allowed him to write letters of which the content was always perceived as the truth, or something along those lines. The old man used his gift to manipulate people into ending their spouses or themselves or other horrible things. I set it up so Franklin Kim received a letter from the old man because the old man was slowly getting clued in about his and the hunters' involvement. The letter to Kim said that the hunters were conspiring with his enemies. Franklin, being as stressed as all hell, decided to confront the hunters about the contents of the letter. He called them to an empty parking lot in the marina, and when they showed up, he screamed at them and demanded answers. Yeah, now that's good police investigating. No subtlety at all. The more sensible of the hunters, by that I mean not Craig, managed to calm him down and change his mind. They had clues that there was someone with the ability to manipulate people on an incredibly high level around, and that Franklin must have been victimized. The idea was that the hunters would get the letter, which contained clues from where it was sent, and eventually this would lead to the old man lunatic. After Franklin had calmed down, the dialogue went something like this. Franklin said, "Oh, damn, I've been totally played. I'm so sorry." Sensible hunter, "It's fine, dude. So you help us catch this guy?" Franklin, "Yeah, of course. Now it's fucking personal." Sensible hunter 2, "Okay, so we're all friends then, so get in the car." Franklin sits down in the front passenger seat, and Craig says, "Hey, you sit in the back. I sit shotgun." Franklin, "What was that?" "I said you sit in the back." "Dude, what? You sit in the back." Craig, "No, you go sit in the back, you mother effer." It was about then that one of Franklin's blood vessels visibly engorged. Franklin says, "You know what? Fuck you. You can't tell me what to do. Unlike you, I'm a real detective. You're just a dropout nobody. You can't tell me shit I don't already know, so sit down in the back and shut the hell up." And here, we freeze time for a moment. You see, Franklin's sitting in the front passenger seat with the door open and yelling at Craig. Craig is stomping his feet like a petulant child, and across the table, real-life Craig is seething with fury. Now we look at Craig's character sheet. Note the distinct lack of dots in required skills that might qualify one to work with the police. His academic score, 0. Computer, 0. Medicine, 0. Politics, 0. Brawl, 0. Larceny, 0. Intimidation, 0. Survival, 0. Socialize, 0. Gosh, where does the character end and the real Craig begin? By all rules of the game, he could never work as a police officer. I had explicitly said this to Craig during character creation. I said, this guy couldn't be a cop. You have to rearrange his skills. And Craig said, okay, whatever. I guess he just cheated his way through exams and dropped out as soon as he could or something. And I answered, okay, sure, but then he won't really have any good contacts within the police department. Craig just went, whatever, and wrote in the backstory that his character had graduated with top marks. Best of the class. Best of class, my ass. That's what cheating will get you. It'll take you all the way to the top. Anyway, time resumes, and Craig's character pulls a gun from the holster with his quick draw skill and points it at Franklin's face. Dude, over a seat? You just want to sit in the front that bad? Sure, okay. Fucking psycho. Sensible hunters all say, why don't we calm down here? Craig, put the gun away. Franklin, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? Are you gonna shoot me? Craig, get out of the car. You sit in the back. Sensible Hunter 3 pops in. Stop it! We're doing exactly what the psychos want. Franklin starts laughing. You know what? No. You are not gonna shoot me just because I won't sit in the back. Now put that thing away and let's go. Then Craig pulls the trigger, shooting Franklin straight through the right kneecap. Motherfucker! Craig then drags Franklin out of the car and onto the parking pavement. You don't speak to me that way. Now shut up before I take your other knee. Dude, you can't, what? Your character's a maniac, you realize that. Franklin's howling in pain and says, you done it now, you little shit. They're gonna take you away for good. Police sirens in the distance, reacting to the gunshot. Franklin starts laughing and crying like a crazy person. See? They're gonna nail you so bad, you fucking poser. Craig sits down in the front passenger seat and says, oh, let's go then. We don't need him anymore. Yeah, this is how things work. Sensible Hunter 1 says, no, we're not going to try and outrun the cops. You got to drop the gun and try not to make this any worse. Police patrol car arrives. 2 officers step out with their service weapons drawn. Policeman, drop the gun. Step out of the vehicle. On your knees and keep your hands where we can see them. At that point, Craig complains that the police showed up on site excessively quick.
Oh, and you're a regular Rhodes Scholar. Where was it you graduated from again? The University of Duh?
You can do like some sick parkour off the building, can't you? Or just faceplant into the pavement. I guess that'll fix it too. Franklin screams in crazy triumph and adrenaline. You really think I'd come in here alone? I was prepared to take you all in. You really done fucked up now. In a sudden urge of uncharacteristic clarity, Craig realizes that shooting his way out of this situation is impossible. He drops his gun and obeys the officers, who proceed to cuff him and put him in the backseat of a patrol car. Now we go back to the table. Out of character. IRL. Well, Craig is just absolutely fuming with poorly veiled rage. He asks if we should just leave, seeing how his character was just put out of commission, and I replied that that was not necessarily the case, and that perhaps the other hunters would be able to talk with Franklin and have him release Craig. Craig would have none of that, of course, and just started packing up in a very hasty fashion. One of the other players said that he didn't have to leave and that they would indeed try to get his character out, but their promises fell on deaf ears, and Craig went into the hallway to get dressed in his outdoor clothing. Whatever, good riddance to bad rubbish, I say. The table was silent for a while until I asked, so what do you guys do now? Nobody even cares he left, that's beautiful. Slowly the game started going again, and then suddenly Craig storms into the room once more, fully dressed to leave. What follows was more or less incoherent screaming and accusations. To start off with, we were all spiteful idiots and bad people. Myself in particular was some form of monster that had it out for him in particular. I stated in my defense that there had to be consequences for everything and that I was sorry he had taken it so personally. Separating the self from the character is essential, after all. Apparently that wasn't good enough for him, and he laid on me all manner of accusations. I was a terrible GM, horrid friend. I made fun of him and harassed and persecuted him. I was utterly stunned. Never once had he said a bad thing about me, at least not to my face that I know of. On numerous occasions, I had asked for feedback, like, do you like this type of scenario? Was it too weird? Yes, it's super weird, but I like it. Take your shirt off. My character puts on his robe and wizard hat. Is there anything you'd like to do different in the future? And not once did Craig have anything bad to say. See, he doesn't have any balls either. He just kept saying how fantastic everything was. Judging from his meltdown, that was not the case. And everything he had kept locked away just poured out like spiteful vitriol from his mouth. The other players were shocked as well, positively stunned into silence. Yeah, he's got a lot of rage inside of him, doesn't he? You're a bottler. You don't need to bottle so much. Let off some steam before it explodes like this. It's stupid. Now you just made yourself look like a whole asshole, okay? Craig finished his tantrum with the words, I never want to play with you again. You in particular. And he pointed at OP. Then he ran out of the apartment and slammed the door as hard as he possibly could, probably waking up the neighbors in the process. We were silent for a little while. Then Jacob spoke in a deadpan voice. Well, shit. Oh, let's play around the Munchkin to calm ourselves down. Yeah. Nobody's actually going to miss Craig, are they? We did just that, and it was awesome. Munchkin is a great game. Yes, finally, a good fucking game. The morning after, Craig erased all contact points with the other players and myself. He went completely AWOL and was nowhere to be found. Those of us that remained were more or less relieved that Craig had left. He was our friend, sure, but one of those friends that take energy rather than give energy. You know, yeah, the emotion vampires. The whole ordeal gave not only me, but the entire group a whole different perspective. Together, we pieced together the puzzle of Craig. Not that it made us much wiser. At least we concurred that, yeah, he was a bit of a weird guy. I mean, you're all sort of weird guys. And it's fine to be a weird guy. I'm a weird guy too, but within limits. You understand? He was weird enough to warrant a small series on some subreddit at the very least. Sometimes we talk about his shenanigans as a warning example, but I can't say we've actually suffered any lasting damage. He made us stronger, if nothing else, and saved us a whole lot of energy drainage with his absence. I have no idea what happened to Craig after all this. He just disappeared into the mists of life. At one point, I know he got a girlfriend. I just hope he realizes that his own bizarre ideals are incompatible with reality and that he treats her well. Does she have no legs and live in a hospital? If not, then that's not his ideal. Whatever. Hopefully he'll grow up and realize that neither Dollface nor Ray is the best girl. They're just idealized versions of something that is best kept where it belongs, in our fantasies. It's not a bad note to end it on. That's all, folks. See you around! TLDR, that guy player's overexcited about a game, then proceeds to paint himself into a corner by kneecapping a police officer, then flips out and accuses the whole group of conspiring against him, willfully terminating his place in the gaming group in the process. Yeah, that escalated quickly. That really got out of hand fast. But it is somewhat the best ending possible. Craig got out and about. He met a lady of his very own, like a real lady, not one that's drawn on a piece of paper. That's pretty neat, huh? That feels pretty cool sometimes, doesn't it? Yeah, it seems like it all turned out for the best. Craig definitely a bit of a weird guy, but it seems like he managed to swing it around. And even for all the shit that I talked about OP, or basically anybody else in the story except for Jacob, I hope that everybody's doing well, you know? It's been a while since this was posted. We've been through some ups and some downs, haven't we? Well, as long as you come out the other side stronger for it, that's what truly matters. Either you as an individual or you as a gaming group. It's whatever you want to do. But anyways, I do hope that you guys enjoyed this episode thoroughly. If you did, like, comment, sub, share it around. Maybe join up on the Patreon or the YouTube memberships. I'd appreciate that a heck of a lot. We got merch over on my Fourth Wall shop. Got some new designs going up shortly. If I find the time today, then they might be there and I'll pin a comment. But regardless of if you decide to do any of those things or not, I hope that the rest of your day is just as good as it can possibly be. Always remember, friends, that you are loved, you are worthy, you definitely deserve it, and I shall see you in the next one. So until then, bye-bye.